princess, soldier, future queen, and somehow, still a teenager trapped inside one of the most watched families in Europe. Because what happened inside that palace tower this week? I don't think the Spanish media is telling the full story at all. According to palace insiders, Princess Leonor reportedly disappeared from a scheduled private family gathering for nearly 2 hours, and when aides finally located her, she had locked herself inside one of the quiet upper rooms of the royal residence. No cameras, no statements, just silence, and honestly, that silence is louder than anything the palace could have said publicly. What caught my attention wasn't even the locked door story itself. It was the timing, because while Kate Middleton and Prince William are carefully rebuilding that polished, stable image in Britain, Leonor's world feels completely different right now. More pressure, more unpredictability, more expectations packed onto someone who hasn't even had the chance to live a normal life. And I keep thinking about this. What happens when a future queen realizes everybody loves the crown, but nobody asks how heavy it actually feels? That's the part people avoid talking about. If you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Because this channel isn't just about royal headlines. I like digging into the emotions behind the photos, the tension behind the smiles, the moments the palace wishes people would stop replaying. And this moment, it matters more than people think. See, most headlines framed it like some dramatic royal tantrum. Princess locks herself away, Leonor under pressure, the usual clickbait machine. But when I looked closer, I started noticing details that completely changed how I saw the story. Apparently, earlier that day, Leonor had just finished another intense round of military responsibilities connected to her royal preparation. And if you've been following her journey, you already know the pattern. Every few months, the monarchy pushes a new image of her into public view. One month she's the disciplined cadet. Next month she's the elegant royal daughter. Then suddenly she's the modern Gen Z princess smiling perfectly for cameras. And honestly, I think that's exhausting. Not physically, mentally. Because imagine trying to figure out who you are while an entire country keeps deciding who you should become. That's not a normal adolescence. That's branding. And here's my hot take nobody wants to say out loud. The Spanish monarchy may actually be overmanaging Leonor right now. I know that sounds harsh, but hear me out. Every public appearance feels carefully calculated. Every expression analyzed. Every friendship questioned online. Every rumored relationship turned into a national discussion. It almost feels less like they're preparing a future queen, and more like they're protecting a billion-dollar institution from looking weak. And yes, I know monarchies survive on image. That's the game, but there's a hidden cost to turning a real person into a permanent symbol. Eventually the person disappears behind the performance. That's why the tower story hit people emotionally. Because for a brief second, Leonor didn't look like a future queen. She looked human, and weirdly enough, I think that's why the internet became obsessed with it. People are tired of robotic royals. Look at why audiences connect with creators like Mr. Beast. Whether you like his content or not, the reason he dominates online culture is because viewers feel like they're seeing real reactions, real pressure, real stakes. Audiences in 2026 crave authenticity more than perfection. That's exactly why Leonor's carefully polished image sometimes feels disconnected from younger audiences. The palace wants elegance. The internet wants honesty. And those two things are starting to collide. What fascinates me most is the symbolism of the tower itself. Think about every royal story we grew up hearing. Towers were supposed to protect royals from the outside world. But now, the tower almost feels reversed. Like it's the only place where she could temporarily escape the expectations waiting downstairs. That changes the entire emotional meaning of the story. And here's something else nobody's discussing. What if locking herself away wasn't weakness at all? What if it was the only moment of control she had that day? Because when your schedule is planned by advisors, your wardrobe approved by officials, your future decided before adulthood, privacy becomes power. Even silence becomes rebellion. That's why I don't fully buy the media narrative claiming this was just stress. I think it's deeper than that. I think Leonor is entering the dangerous phase every modern royal eventually reaches, the identity split. The moment where the public character becomes bigger than the private self. You could even see hints of it in some of her recent appearances. There are moments where she smiles perfectly, but her eyes look distant for half a second afterward. And maybe I'm overanalyzing, but longtime royal watchers notice these things immediately. It reminds me of what happened to younger royals across Europe over the past decade. The institutions adapt slower than the internet does. The palace still thinks mystery creates power. But Gen Z grew up online. Mystery creates suspicion now. People don't want untouchable royals anymore. They want emotionally believable ones. That's why Leonor's popularity strangely increases whenever she looks imperfect. And honestly, the monarchy may secretly understand that too. Because let's be real here. If the palace truly wanted this story buried, it probably would have disappeared instantly. Instead, vague insider comments somehow leaked out just enough to keep the conversation alive. That's not accidental. Modern royal PR teams are extremely calculated. So I started asking myself another question. Why allow this story to circulate now? My theory: because the Spanish monarchy is slowly transitioning Leonor from protected princess into emotionally relatable future queen. That's the new strategy, not untouchable perfection, controlled vulnerability. And in 2026, that strategy works. Look at social media reactions right now. People aren't mocking her. Most comments are protective, sympathetic, concerned. Young viewers especially see themselves in her situation. Feeling overwhelmed, feeling watched, feeling pressured to become something before fully understanding yourself. That emotional connection is powerful. But it's also risky. Because once audiences emotionally attach themselves to a royal figure, expectations become impossible to satisfy. Suddenly Leonor isn't just representing Spain anymore. She's carrying projections from millions of people who see their own anxiety reflected in her life. That's dangerous territory for any public figure. And personally, I think the palace underestimated how intense that emotional projection would become. Especially after the military training era began. At first, the training made her look disciplined and strong. But over time, I think people started noticing the emotional weight underneath it. The fatigue, the isolation, the pressure to constantly prove herself worthy of the crown. There's this old royal assumption that duty automatically creates admiration. But modern audiences don't work that way anymore. Today, people connect more with struggle than status. That's why this tower incident exploded online faster than some official royal ceremonies ever do. One feels scripted, the other feels real. And if I'm being honest, I think Leonor herself may be starting to understand that too. Because the strongest future monarchs are no longer the coldest ones. They're the most emotionally intelligent ones. That's part of why Queen Letizia remains so fascinating to watch. Love her or criticize her, she understands media psychology better than almost anyone in European royalty. Every gesture is deliberate, every expression measured. But Leonor belongs to a completely different generation. You can't manage Gen Z emotions with old royal formulas forever. Eventually authenticity breaks through. And maybe that's exactly what happened inside that tower. Not a scandal, not a meltdown, just a rare moment where the future queen stopped performing long enough to breathe. Honestly, I think people underestimate how psychologically strange royal life really is. Imagine knowing every mistake you make could become an international headline before dinner. Imagine never fully trusting whether people like you, or just the title attached to your name. Imagine feeling lonely in rooms full of people. That's the part documentaries never fully capture. And maybe that's why this story keeps staying in people's minds days later. Deep down, it doesn't even feel like a royal story anymore. It feels human, a young woman under impossible pressure retreating somewhere quiet because the noise became too much for one afternoon. And weirdly, that single locked door may have done more for Leonor's public image than 100 polished speeches ever could. Because for once, the future queen didn't feel distant. She felt real. And in 2026, reality is the one thing audiences trust the most.